This is Maurice Odhiambo, the African teacher, right here in Nairobi, Kenya. Now, I've told you many times that when you are told about a world order, you have to ask two fundamental questions. Number one, whose order is it? And number two, for what purpose was it put in place? I've just been reviewing Bob Wekesa's article in Saturday Nation. It's titled Africa, the United Nations Shifting Geopolitical Order. Bob Wekesa is an international relations expert and I think also a former journalist. So we have sort of traveled the same professional and academic path. Now, Bob says quite a bit about the decaying liberal international order and gives reasons why that old order is decaying. And primarily, it is because of America's MAGA philosophy, Make America Again philosophy, which is the basis for Donald Trump's power. The liberal international order, whose key institutions include the United Nations and other institutions like the World Trade Organization and so on, was created purposely to nurture and cement America's dominance in the world. Now, the MAGA philosophy has therefore diluted the key pillars of the liberal international order, whether one is thinking about trade tariffs that America has imposed on other countries, or whether one is thinking about America's defunding of critical UN agencies. Now, make no mistake about it, the multilateral world, or what we call multilateralism, has always been important for weaker states and weaker nations and weaker countries. Unfortunately, that is where Africa falls. Now, when you depart from the UN-based multilateral system, it means that you embrace more bilateral ways of doing things, so that you can see, for example, that Kenya in this region, in the East African region, was more or less forced by circumstances to sign the economic partnership agreements with the European Union. And our attempts as civil society to insist that the EPAS negotiation be done with the East African community as a collective really failed. Part of that is because the multilateral system is in a crisis right now. And so what Bob is basically saying is alluding to the emergence of other structures. Because once the international system in place, once that system begins to crumble and decay, power, we say that power abhors a vacuum. So other formations come up to fill up the space. And one of those is the BRICS formation, which is seen to be representing the global south. Of course, the big question is, who dominates the BRICS formation? And will the BRICS formation deliver a more equitable world system, if at all it gathers or garners an international or a global mandate, the way the UN system has done over the years, particularly after what Europeans call the Second World War, sometime in 1945. And so the critical question for African audiences is, how can collective power, how can Africa's agency be developed to an extent that Africa also begins to shape the world order. If that does not happen, then automatically we then know that we will continue to bandwagon into formations that are brought in for purposes that cannot support Africa's own development. There are two critical pillars. One of them is integration, and the other one is security. And I've talked about these themes over and over and over in the last 5 years, because as a new world order is being shaped, Africa still and African states still seem to be kowtowing to decisions that are being made elsewhere. But Africa must reach that point where it then becomes the one that not only forms but also safeguards a world order. That is the only way then that the African continent can claim power and stop the subjugation, stop the humiliation of the African people.